Asta Terasata Shri Shrimada's Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pairajikacharya Asta Terasata Shri Shrimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Thakur Haridas Ki Jai. Prem Shri Goho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Chamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Dwarka Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Brihat Madrunga Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhashama Sundar Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Samveda Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai. All glorious assembled devotees. All glorious assembled devotees. All glorious assembled devotees. All glorious to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 5, Text 20. Shastrasya Pritir Adesham, Shastrasya Pitir Adesham, Yona Veda Vivartakam, Katam Tadanarupaya, Gunavishram Yupakramet, Shastrasya Pitur Adesham, Yona Veda Vivartakam, Katam Tad Anurupaya, Gunavishram Yapakramet, Shastrasya Pitur Adesham, Yona Veda Vivartakam, Katam Tad Anurupaya, Gunavishram Yupakramet. Next, please. Yona Veda Vartakam, Anurupaya, Gunavishram Yapakramet, Shastrasya Pitaradesham, Yona Veda Vivartakam, Narupaya, Gunavishram Yapakramet, Shastrasya Pitur Adesham, Yona Veda Vivartakam, Katam Tadanarupaya, Gunavishram Yapakramet. Mataji's, please. Shastrasya Pitaradesham, Yona Veda Vivartakam Katam Tadanarupaya Pakramet Shastrasha Pituradesham Yona Veda Vivartakam Katam Tadanarupaya Gunavisramya Pakramet Shastrasya of the scriptures, Pitu of the Father, Adesham the instruction, Ya one who, Na not, Veda understands, Nivartakam which brings about the cessation of the material way of life. Katam, how? Tad anurupaya, to follow the instructions of the Shastra. Gunavishrammi, a person entangled in the three modes of material nature. Upakramet, can engage in the creation of progeny. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Narada Muni asked how one could ignorantly defy one's own father. The Haryashvas understood the meaning of this question. One must accept the original instructions of the Shastra. According to Vedic civilization, one is offered a sacred thread as a sign of second birth. One takes his second birth by dint of having received instructions in the Shastra from a bona fide spiritual master. Therefore, Shastra, scripture, is the real father. All Shastras instruct that one should end his material way of life. If one does not know the purpose of the Father's orders, the Shastras, he is ignorant. The words of a material father who endeavors to engage his sons in material activities are not the real instructions of the Father. Purport. Bhagavad Gita 16:7 says, Pavritam cha navrittam cha jana navadur asura. Demons who are less than human beings but are not called animals do not know the meaning of pravriti and nivriti, work to be done and work not to be done. In the material world, every living entity has a desire to lord it over the material world as much as possible. This is called pravriti marg. All the Shastras, however, advise nivriti marg, or release from the materialistic way of life. Apart from the Shastras of the Vedic civilization, which is the oldest of the world, other Shastras agree on this point. For example, in the Buddhist Shastra, Lord Buddha advises that one achieve nirvana by giving up the materialistic way of life. In the Bible, which is also Shastra, one will find the same advice. One should cease materialistic life and return to the kingdom of God. In any Shastra one may examine, especially the Vedic Shastra, the same advice is given. One should give up his materialistic life and return to his original spiritual life. Sankaracharya also propounds the same conclusion. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mitya. This material world or materialistic life is simply illusion, and therefore one should stop his illusory activities and come to the platform of Brahman. The Shastras refer to the scriptures, particularly the Vedic books of knowledge, the Vedas, Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva, and any other books deriving knowledge from these Vedas are considered Vedic literatures. Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge, and therefore it is the scripture whose instructions should be especially accepted. In this essence of all Shastras, Krishna personally advises that one give up all other duties and surrender unto him, Sarvar Dhaman Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja. One should be initiated into following the principles of Shastra. In offering initiation, our Krishna consciousness movement asks one to come to the conclusion of the Shastra by taking the advice of the supreme speaker of the Shastra, Krishna, forgetting the principles of materialistic way of life. Therefore, the principles we advise are no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, and no meat eating. These 4 types of engagement will enable an intelligent person to get free from the materialistic life and return home back to Godhead. In regard to the instructions of the father and the mother, it may be said that every living entity, including even the insignificant cats and dogs and serpents, takes birth of a father and a mother. Therefore, getting a material father and mother is not a problem. In every form of life, birth after birth, the living entity gets a father and mother. In human society, however, if one is satisfied with his material father and mother and their instructions and does not make further progress by accepting a spiritual master and being educated in the Shastras, he certainly remains in darkness. The material father and mother are important only if they are interested in educating their sons to become free from the clutches of death. As instructed by Rishabhadev, Bhagavatam 5.5.18, Pita na sasyaj jananina sasyat na mochayadya samupecham ritum. One should not strive to become a mother or father if one cannot save one's dependent son from the impending danger of death. A parent who does not know how to save his son has no value because such fathers and mothers may be had in any form of life, even among the cats, dogs, and so on. Only a father and mother who can elevate their son to the spiritual platform are bona fide parents. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, it is said, Janma Jayate Shudra. One is born of a material father and mother as a Sudra. The purpose of life, however, is to become a Brahmana, a first-class man. A first-class intelligent man is called a Brahmana because he knows the Supreme Brahman, the absolute truth. According to Vedic instructions, tad vignartam sa gurum eva bigachet. To know this science, one must approach a bona fide guru, a spiritual master who will initiate the disciple with a sacred thread so that he may understand Vedic knowledge. Janma jayate shudra samskara dvi bhaved dvija. Becoming a Brahmana through the endeavor of a bona fide spiritual master is called samskara. After initiation, one is engaged in the study of the Shastras, which teaches the student how to gain release from materialistic life and return home back to Godhead. The Krishna consciousness movement is teaching this higher knowledge of retiring from materialistic life to return to Godhead. But unfortunately, many parents are not satisfied with this movement. Aside from the parents of our students, many businessmen are also dissatisfied because we teach our students to abandon intoxication, meat eating, illicit sex, and gambling. If the Krishna consciousness movement spreads, the so-called businessmen will have to close their slaughterhouses, breweries, and cigarette factories. Therefore, they are also very much afraid. However, we have no alternative than to teach our disciples to free themselves from materialistic life. We must instruct them in the opposite of material life to save them from the repetition of birth and death. Narada Muni therefore advised the Haryashvas, the son of Prajapati Daksha, that instead of begetting progeny, it would be better to leave and achieve the perfection of spiritual understanding according to the instructions of the Shastra. The importance of the Shastras is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 16:23. Yashastra vidhim utsreja vartate kamakarata. Nasasadhim avapnoti nasukam naparam gatim. One who disregards the instructions of the Shastra and acts whimsically as he likes never achieves the perfection of life, not to speak of happiness. nor does he return home to the spiritual worlds. Namaon Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminite Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvashesha Sunyavadi Pashtacha Deshatarane Amaganatim Janan Janan Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Vangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shigurum Dinataranam. So I'd like to begin first by expressing appreciation and gratitude to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, whose disappearance day is today. Our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, derived great inspiration from the commentaries of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in writing his Bhaktivedanta purports. So we're all very much indebted to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And I would also like to express my deep appreciation and gratitude for being in this most sacred place, Sri Vrindavan Dham, in this most inconceivably marvelous Krishna Balara Mandir, in the association of devotees who are serious about hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. Nothing can get better than this. Thank you. I've been looking at their lordships the last few days and realizing that it's the beauty of Sri Sri Krishna Balaram, Sri Sri Gaurnitai, Sri Sri Radhashama Sundar. It's almost impossible to absorb. They're so infinitely beautiful. It's very difficult to absorb that. It's very difficult to understand. And actually, with the eyes, you can only see so much with their eyes. But even with their eyes, there's so much beauty. If you look at this temple room, it's so beautifully decorated. It's just so marvelous. But beyond the eyes, there's something in the Krishna Balaram Mandir that it very much impacts the heart. Very much impacts the heart. And I continually pray to somehow, with my heart, be able to see and understand and appreciate and have gratitude for the vision that our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada had, and how that vision manifests before us today in this Krishna Balaram Mandir, in the association of Vaishnavas, and how that vision, it's not a vision in the past, it's a vision that's unfolding now. And a part of appreciating that vision is understanding the bhakti that is present in the Krishna Balaram Mandir. So I can see and appreciate the infinite beauty of the deities, but the Lord is infinitely beautiful, but he becomes even more beautiful when he's decorated and dressed by the loving hands of his servitors, of the devotees. So the pujaris do such a wonderful seva with love, decorating the deity. And there's such beautiful clothes. Someone has designed those clothes, sewn those clothes, funded those clothes, all as an offering of love. And there's so many garlands on the deities, garlands in the temple, so much loving service. And then behind the scenes, there's so many devotees cooking for the deities, cutting vegetables, cleaning, looking after Krishna's cows. Someone's bringing milk. Devotees are actually making garlands all days. And someone is managing all this, especially the head pujari. I was head pujari for 20 years. I know what's involved behind this. And there's hundreds of hours of seva every day. In Krishna Balaram Mandir, must be hundreds and hundreds. So someone is managing all that and putting it together. And it's all being done out of love. It is all being done out of love. And when you look at the beauty of the deity, the eyes see the beauty of the deity, but all that love that's been offered by the devotees, it comes and it deeply impresses the heart. And similarly, this Krishna Balaram Mandir, It's an extremely special and most sacred place. It was the vision of Srila Prabhupada. And just as Narada Muni, he convinced the disciples of Daksha to give up materialistic life, to take instructions from their real father, the spiritual master and guru, and dedicate themselves to spiritual life. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada, he inspired so many young men and women to give up their families, their career, their education, their wealth, gave up everything. And many of us moved in these little houses crammed with devotees, 50 devotees living in one small house. Everyone was just completely dedicated to Prabhupada. And the devotees were distributing Srila Prabhupada's books and collecting Lakshmi. And much of that seva that they did resulted in the manifestation of this Krishna Balaram Mandir by their service and surrender to Srila Prabhupada. So I see cement and paint and marble, but it's much more than that. Like they say sometimes, if the walls could speak. So these walls and pillars, they're actually filled with the loving bhakti of Srila Prabhupada's disciples who helped build the Krishna Balaram. And they're filled with the bhakti of the devotees who are working very hard to maintain the Krishna Balaram Mandir. Actually, to maintain something is more difficult than to build something. That's why Vishnu is in charge of creation, or Vishnu is in charge of maintenance. Brahma creates, Shiva annihilates, but maintenance is extremely difficult. It's a very difficult task to maintain something. But in the Krishna Balaram Mandir, I see how the management here, they've done such a marvelous job with so much love and devotion to maintain the standards that Srila Prabhupada set. And therefore, those of us who come from afar, when we enter this temple, we experience all that, the result of all that bhakti within our hearts. So I have to express my deep appreciation and gratitude to Srila Prabhupada for making this manifest, and to all those who took part in helping it become manifest and maintaining it. I just have to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Hare Krishna. So in this verse, it's describing how the Prachetas have assimilated this knowledge, and they have come to the conclusion to give up materialistic life. And we have appearance of several great associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the calendar today. One is Raghunath Das Goswami, who similarly, he gave up everything to become an associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He came from a very wealthy family. He could have had everything. Actually, he did have everything. He had a beautiful wife, so much facility. But he only wanted one thing. He wanted to join the party of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was obsessed with becoming an associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita how Raghunath Das, sometimes he would leave his home to go and join Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his father would send a party to apprehend him and bring him back. And Raghunath Das Goswami, he did this so many times, eventually they kept him under watch 24 hours a day, because they knew he was going to escape and surrender to Krishna, surrender to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But one day, Jai Shri Shri Gaunitai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radha. One day Krishna made an arrangement for Raghunath Das. The family priest came and asked Raghunath Das that there's a pujari in one temple. I think he wanted to bloop. He wanted to leave. So he said, Raghunath, you come with me and you can convince this pujari to stay and do his seva. So Raghunath Das agreed, and so the family, they trust the family priest, so Raghunath went alone with the family priest to convince this Prajari to stay with his seva. And then after this, Raghunath somehow convinced the family priest that everything was okay, I'll come back a little later. But he didn't come back a little later. He immediately went towards Jagannath Puri through the forest and off the beaten track and remained there with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so Raghunath Das, at first when he was in Puri, eventually his family realized he's going to stay. So they would send him some money regularly. And Raghunath Das, he would use that Lakshmi to prepare wonderful feasts for the Vaishnavas. But after some time, Raghunath Das, he considered, well, this is not actually proper. I'm trying to become renounced, so I'll give up accepting this money. So he stopped accepting that Lakshmi from his family. And he began to take whatever whatever prasadam he would get, he would take it from a free prasadam distribution booth. Anything that was left over, it would be given out to the pilgrims. So Raghunath Das was taking that. And after some time, he thought, still, this is not right. And then he began begging outside the temple. When the Brahmins would come out, they would give some alms to the beggars. But Raghunath began to think, he thought, this is like a merchant. I'm looking at everyone coming, thinking, he might give, he might not give. So he stopped that. And then eventually Raghunath Das, he became so renounced in consciousness that the only prasad he accepted was that prasad which was left over at the free prasadam distribution booths that no one would take. And they would take that food and they would put it in the street by the gutter. And the cows would come and they would take that. And there was some that the cows would leave. Raghunath Das Goswami, he would go and collect that. And it's described he would take off the outer portion, take the inner portion, wash it, and he would honor that prasad. That was the only prasad he was subsisting on. He was so renounced. Who could imagine doing that? If you've seen the streets in Jagannath Puri, you appreciate how advanced Raghunath Das, how much faith he had in Jagannath Prasadam. Such incredible faith. So that's all he was taking. Just a little rejected rice, Krishnadas Kaviraj describes. But then it's described how Lord Chaitanya one day showed up at Raghunath Das Goswami's little bhajan kutir and said, Raghunath, I hear you are having such wonderful feasts. Why you're not inviting me? And Raghunath was very ashamed because he didn't have anything to offer. He wouldn't even consider offering Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu some rejected rice. He wouldn't even consider that. He said, I'm sorry, my Lord, I have nothing. But Lord Chaitanya, he forcibly went into Raghunath Das Swami's hut and took some of this rejected rice and began to honor it. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I have tasted many varieties of Lord Jagannath's Mahaprasad. He said, this was the best. This was the best. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did that to show how much he appreciated the loving devotion and commitment of Raghunath Das Goswami towards his renunciation. Raghunath Das Goswami was amazingly renounced. Barely sleep. It's described the 6 Goswamis. They would forget to sleep. Not that they stayed up, they would just forget to sleep. They were so absorbed in the ecstasy of hearing and chanting about Krishna. They would forget to sleep. They would forget to eat. Not fast, they just forget to eat and sleep. And it's described Raghunath Das Goswami, his austerities and devotional principles and vows, they were like the lines on a stone. Like if you take some of this marble, and if you were to take a cloth and some vim or cleaner, and try and clean the lines off the stone, it would never happen. So they said Raghunath Das Goswami's determination in following the principles that he followed was like that. It was like the lines in a stone. Lines in a stone. It's like fixed. So such a very elevated soul. And similarly, it's also the appearance of Srila Vishnu Priya, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's second wife. Actually, I had thought about reading a pastime from Chaitanya Mangal. I was reading this conversation that Vishnu Priya had with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the night before he took sannyas. She knew he was going to take sannyas. And she had this conversation with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I could not read it. I could not bring myself to read it. I thought if I read that pastime, the devotees' hearts would melt, and there would be so many tears, the courtyard would be filled with tears. It's so sad to read. It's so right. She had so much devotion and love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And similarly, after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, she also became extremely renounced, and extremely dedicated to the holy name. So there's these great examples in our line of devotees who exhibit such great levels of austerity. Dhruva Maharaj also, very great austerity. Like in relationship with Dhruva Maharaj and his austerity, Srila Prabhupada once said, it's our duty to realize our insignificance in relationship with the austerities that Dhruva Maharaj performed. We cannot begin to imagine. We cannot imitate. Prabhupada said we cannot imitate Raghunath Das Goswami. It was once some devotee who tried to fast for 40 days, and then he left. He left the movement. And Prabhupada heard this, and Prabhupada said, fasting should make you stronger, not weaker in spiritual life. The purpose of austerity is to make you stronger. So we cannot imitate Raghunath Das Goswami. Prabhupada emphasized that. But we should understand the principle behind the example he set. So Prabhupada said that example is that we should take a little bit less rather than a little bit more. We should simply take a little bit less than a little bit more. And there's one recording of Srila Prabhupada describing this. Prabhupada must have seen something, because he said, you should take a little bit less rather than a little bit more. And he said something like, not that you go in the closet and eat 6 samosas. So he must have seen something like that. He must have seen something. So take a little bit less and honor Krishna Prasadam. That is such a great austerity. Simply taking Prasadam. I was astounded when I first moved in the temple. All the Mahaprasadam was kept in a cupboard. And devotees were continually stealing the Mahaprasadam, continually. And they even locked the cupboard. And devotees were breaking the cupboard. And when Govinda prayers came on in the morning, the temple room was right next to the Prasadam room where the cupboard was. So when the Govinda prayers would come on, someone would come in with the crowbar right when the Govinda prayers were blaring over the speakers, and they would use a crowbar to break open the Maha cabinet to steal the Maha. But that very same thing, the very same rasgulla, sandesh, burfi, that very same thing was one room away in the kitchen in a cupboard that was not locked. It was not locked. No one would take that. But they would break down the door of the Maha cabinet. They would risk their lives, literally, for Mahaprasad. When the temple president became so frustrated, we had a temple guard, Dakshin, Dakshin. I gave him a pellet gun. Pellet gun. Not bullets, small little projectile. And not exactly stun, but it hurts. It hurts. It's called a pellet gun. And so one of my godbrothers, he came one day and he was going to steal some Mahaprasad. And Dakshin says, what are you doing? And he says, I'm going to take some Mahaprasad. And the temple guard says, no, you're not. And the devotee says, yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, I am. And he reached for it, and boom, temple guard, he shot him in the arm with a pellet gun. It just left a bruise, but devotees would risk their lives to take Mahaprasad. So devotees are actually very self-controlled. They perform a very great austerity. Simply offering food to Krishna is just a very wonderful, very powerful, great austerity. And that prasadam is so sacred and so sanctified. So that is a very wonderful austerity that Srila Prabhupada has given. Simply take prasad. And today is also the appearance day of one of the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Pundarik Vijayanidhi. So this is like a juxtaposition of two opposites. Raghunath Das Goswami also appeared today. He's the personification of renunciation. Pundarik Vijayanidhi was quite different. He has a very different personality. He's actually said to be a manifestation of Vrishabhanu. Who's Pundarik Vijayanidhi? I think he's, Vrishabhanu. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes would refer to him as father. He honored him like his father. But Pundarik Vijayanidhi is very unusual. He was a very wealthy person. He had a room with a bed with a big silk canopy with silk cushions. And he had long hair that was oiled. And in his room, it's described, there was a hookah pipe. And there was a mirror on the wall. And sometimes he would look at himself in the mirror. And so this is very bewildering. Raghunath Das Goswami's personification of renunciation, Pundarik Vijayanidhi's can't understand. And even Gadadhar Pandit, he became a little bewildered by Pundarik Vijayanidhi. He's trying to understand that. I've heard he's a very exalted Vaishnava, but it didn't match with his expectations. So he had some doubt in his mind about Pundarik Vijayanidhi. And so he went to see Pundarik Vijayanidhi, and he observed that when Krishna's name was mentioned, Pundarik Vijayanidhi went into ecstasy. He just fell on the ground, and his arms began to thrash and began to break things within the room. He just had these great symptoms of ecstatic love. And Gadadhar Pandit realized that, yes, Pundarik Vijayanidhi is the most exalted spiritual personality, a liberated soul. So in spiritual life, it's not black or white. There's much variegatedness. There's a very great degree of variety in devotees and how they serve Krishna and in their loving moods. And it's very important to understand that. So we cannot imitate Pundarik Vijayanidhi and become sense enjoyers. In the same way, we cannot imitate Raghunath Das Goswami and try to artificially become renounced. But we have to understand that renunciation is the principle. We all honor that understanding of ultimate renunciation. So within Krishna consciousness, and even within Srila Prabhupada's books, you'll find many paradoxes, things that opposing statements. There's one place where Srila Prabhupada said, after the age of 50, everyone should take sannyas. Every man should go to the forest, take sannyas. There's another place where Srila Prabhupada said, in the age of Kali Yuga, no one should take sannyas. It's in the same purport. So how do we understand these statements? But Srila Prabhupada, he qualifies those statements by saying if one is qualified and can follow all those rules and regulations, then he should take sannyas. So there's many things in Srila Prabhupada's books that appear contradictory, and it's very important that we try to understand those. We try to understand Srila Prabhupada's books very deeply. Because the key to understanding Srila Prabhupada's books brings us to this point, Kim Masat Karma Bir Bhavet. It'll bring us to this point of understanding the futility of material existence. And it's very important that we have to hear that. I've been here 3 days. I was appreciating the classes by the devotees. It's bringing home this point, how we have to realize the futility of this material world. And as I was saying, I was a pujari for many years, almost 20 years in Vancouver Temple. And I was reading Srila Prabhupada's books once, and there was one statement that Srila Prabhupada said. He said, even you worship the deity and you do not read my books, your activities can become material. And so for me that was, whoa, I thought I better be very serious about reading Srila Prabhupada's books, because you can be before the deity and your consciousness can be somewhere else. We can be in the temple and our consciousness can be somewhere else. We can be in the Krishna Balaram Mandir and our consciousness can be somewhere else. But it's very important that we learn to deeply try to understand and implement and appreciate the knowledge that Srila Prabhupada has given us. It's such a precious thing, such a precious thing. Like we look around this temple, we appreciate so much. There's so much to appreciate here. And it's just like gems. Just like gems. It's free for the taking. You can take as many as you want. You can appreciate unlimitedly. You can take all those gems and just hold them to your heart. And so many Srila Prabhupada's books, there's so many gems of knowledge and realization that if you continually read and try to understand, and even if you don't understand, Krishnadas Kaviraj, he said, even you don't understand Chaitanya Charitamrita, he said, just read it again and again. He said, because if you read it again and again, he said, you will develop love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's so important to read Srila Prabhupada's books and try to understand and derive those gems. And even we may not be able to understand. Even we may not even be able to attentively chant the holy name. Actually, I think it's in the 11th or 12th canto, I can't remember the verse, where Krishna says, even if my devotee chants inattentively, I will never leave his heart. So Krishna is always there. But somehow we should chant attentively. We should try to understand Srila Prabhupada's books. And we should try to treasure those things and hold them very close to our heart. And for myself, I came to the conclusion that it's actually a very difficult thing to do to understand Srila Prabhupada's books. It's a very difficult thing to do to chant the holy name. It's a very difficult thing to do. But if we can understand that this is what Srila Prabhupada wanted. Actually, for me, the importance of chanting japa was placed in my heart in an extremely powerful way. In 1977, my wife and I had, I guess it's the painful fortune of being present before Srila Prabhupada's departure, about the last week and a half. And I would spend a lot of time in Srila Prabhupada's room every day. And it was 3 or 4 days before Srila Prabhupada left. I would sit in Srila Prabhupada's room, and there was always kirtan going, sometimes japa. And I have a very horrible voice, so I was always afraid I would be the only one there and I'd have to chant in kirtan for Srila Prabhupada. That never happened. I was thankful to Krishna for that. But one day, it was only a few devotees, and I think it was 2 devotees came in, and one with the harmonium, and he began to chant Brahma Samhita. It was so beautiful. It was just angelic. And then Prabhupada, he said, I just want japa. I just want japa. And I was surprised, the devotees that were doing kirtan, they left. So I thought, if Prabhupada wants japa, I will chant japa. I'll chant japa for Prabhupada. And so for several days before Prabhupada left the planet, I had the fortune of bathing Lalita Vishaka every morning. I would bathe the deities, and I would go to Prabhupada's room, and I would chant japa all day till I was falling asleep, standing up. I thought, if Prabhupada wants japa, I'll chant japa for him. And for myself, I find it extremely difficult to control my mind. One palm reader, he said, oh, you have a very active mind. And yes, my mind's always like... And nothing works for me for controlling my mind when I'm chanting japa, except if I consider that I am chanting my japa for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. For me, that's the only thing that works. Srila Prabhupada wanted that so much. And Srila Prabhupada, he wanted so much for us to read his books, to read and try to understand his books and discuss the law. He wanted that so much. Sometimes he expressed disappointment that we as disciples were not reading his books. He said, I'm laboring so hard to write these books. Why you're not reading them? Prabhupada wanted us to read these books, to chant the holy name. And that's very satisfying to Srila Prabhupada. And it may be very difficult, but we can pray to Krishna, my dear Lord Krishna, please help us attentively chant the holy name. My dear Lord Krishna, please help us to understand Srila Prabhupada's books. Even we may be so unqualified to approach the holy name or to understand Srila Prabhupada's books. But if Krishna sees that somehow we're trying to serve our father or your grandfather, the founder of our movement, by doing this, Krishna will surely help. And the more we can become, the more we can really imbibe these gems. Like, again, they're like gems. Srila Prabhupada's books are like gems. The holy name is a gem. This temple is a gem. If we can hold that to our heart, and then wherever we go in the world, we can distribute those gems to others. We can distribute those gems to others. And that's what the Krishna consciousness movement is about. It's described how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, they plundered the storehouse of love of God and ate and distributed the contents. And the more they distributed the contents, the more the supply increased. So therefore we have this great duty to grab these gems that are around us. So many, it's so deep. And then out of appreciation and gratitude and feeling that obligation, we can distribute those gems wherever we go, to whoever we meet. So thank you very much for your kind association and attention. So I would ask if anyone has any questions or realization. Maharaj.
I have a question.
Yes.
Small question. You were talking about Frederick Didier and how he had a hookah and a mirror, but he was on the highest level. Fix the chord. Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Hare Krishna. So about Frederick Didier, my question is, on one hand, Krishna asked, Arjuna asked in Bhagavad Gita, how do they walk, how do they sit, and there's a description of their qualities, characteristics, and activities that you can ascertain. Well, here's an advanced Vaishnava. Well, suppose I, Vajrayana Swami, I get a hookah. I pomade my nice sika. I said, no, you don't understand. So, what, do we just throw out that measure? What's the how do we balance that? What's going on?
Well, my understanding is that we have to be very careful not to judge anyone and try to see the devotional qualities in anyone.
So if I set up my hookah here, no problem, don't judge me.
Like it's described, even if someone saw Lord Nityananda going into a liquor shop, they would know he must have some purpose for preaching.
No, we turfed you out in a second. Thank you. Beat me on the way out.
Actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that even a sa-kama devotee, a devotee with material desires, you should not consider him a sa-kama devotee. You should not designate him because he's engaged in chanting the holy name. So you put a designation on someone, you're this.
But how does our bunch go to manage the brahmachari ashram when they all line up with hookahs?
The point I'm making is that if we designate someone at a certain point in time and space, they're actually engaged in the process of devotional service, and by the time we place that designation, they may have advanced. And so for some people, the advancement may be slow. But as you're saying, in management, it's a very difficult thing. It's a thankless task, and I do not envy managers at all. This is extremely difficult service. Prabhupada used to use this phrase, how to bend without breaking. And sometimes in management, maybe you almost have to break. Sometimes you may have to ask someone to leave the temple. It's a very difficult thing. It's very difficult. Someone is not actually serious about Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said the Krishna consciousness movement is not a place for lazy and crazy fellows. Prabhupada actually said that. So for a manager, it's a very, very difficult task.
The old mantra used to be, when in doubt, toss them out.
Can I share something with you, Maharaj? It's a little different. Our godbrother, Mahatma Prabhu, he was saying people are always complaining about the GBC. GBC did this, the GBC didn't do that. And he said if they spent as much time praying to Krishna to help the GBC and empower them to make good decisions, just imagine what the world would be like if we gave up this criticizing and fault-finding mentality and we're more appreciative and we're more prayerful. Imagine what a different place the world would be. Someone in the back's frantically waving their hand. Hare Krishna.
Your lecture. I have a question about devotional service.
Question?
About devotional service.
Devotional service.
If one gets paid to do devotional service, is it still devotional service?
Sometimes devotees require some maintenance. You have to maintain devotees. So that's a little bit different than being paid. And so one may render service in the temple, maybe giving his life, but everyone has requirements in this life that you need. Certain facilities and certain things. And so the temple can provide those kind of things. But it has to be balanced. Like I can't render service to the temple and think I'm entitled to all kinds of material opulence because of my service. But one can accept some humble stipend from the temple. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Sometimes when we are in service and we are working with other people,
you get service and
I'm just completing. Sometimes when we work with other people in the service, we see that probably they are not doing that service correctly. And what happens is this kind of gets an irritation in mind that why that person is not doing this service properly. Now at the other hand, sometimes management or whoever is senior to us is so in the transcendental mode that they say, just pray to Krishna or do something like that. And we see that the service is not getting rendered very properly because might be we are having some previous experience or knowledge to do it. So how to deal with this situation? How to deal with the situation wherein we are seeing the service is not rendered properly?
So you're asking how to rectify a situation if we see something being done or not done, and sometimes it disturbs our mind.
Very much.
My experience is that sometimes if we see something like that and it's disturbing to the mind, it's like when I'm pointing my finger at someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at me. And my experience is generally if my mind is disturbed, if I look within, there's also something that I'm not doing properly, and I'm projecting my own inadequacies and faults on others. But the real way to correct someone is with love. I read this very nice definition of discipline once. It was from the Latin, but it actually said that one meaning of the word discipline is to give life to knowledge. And when I read that, I thought that was Srila Prabhupada. We were disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and it wasn't that Srila Prabhupada was beating us with sticks and forcing us, but he brought life to knowledge. He brought life to knowledge, and you just wanted to move in the temple. You wanted to give up everything. It was so wonderful. So similarly, we have to purify our hearts, and the more we purify our hearts, we won't become disturbed by the wrongs of others, but we'll be able to see a way in which we can correct them with love. And they'll feel corrected with love. But if we approach them with an agitated mind, that vibration is likely to agitate the person's mind. So it's very important. Our interactions need to be on the platform of loving bhakti, and that's very important. And that's one thing we should learn in the Holy Dham, is that Krishna Balaram's here, Shri Shri Gaura is here, Radha Shama Sundar is here. But when we go home to our ashrams, our houses, or dealing with our friends, the brahmacharis, our families, Krishna is also there in our hearts. And even in your home, you may have little altars. So why we behave differently? Why we behave differently? We forget. So that's why I'm saying, take as many of these gems as you can home with you. And just grab them and just hoard the gems of appreciation and knowledge that are available in the Holy Dham, and just take a huge load home and cherish that and apply it in your life. And that will help you to navigate those types of situations in constructive ways, loving ways. So 9 o'clock. How do you go? One last comment, question.
I very much appreciate your point. I've heard so many times that we must reach Srila Prabhupada's books. I have always had a difficulty with this.
A little closer.
And I was, so this is a comment and a question. I was somewhat...
To hold it a little closer to your chin.
I was very enlightened actually hearing Krishna Mahamandir Gargavuni who mentioned that Prabhupada said devotees should meet together and read my books literally out loud together, not just... And so I just wanted you to comment on that.
It's very nice. We just came from Jagannath Puri. There was a nice retreat with Vaisheshika and Madhavananda. And a part of the program was every day we'd read one chapter of Bhagavad Gita, either the Sanskrit or English or both, together. And then also there was very nice discussions. It was a class, but there was also discussion of the philosophy. And so it enables you to enter very deeply when you discuss the philosophy with devotees and you read together and try to understand together. And actually, Srila Prabhupada, he said once in a purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita that when devotees come together to discuss and glorify Krishna, he's so pleased by that. Seeing the devotees come together, he says, even they have no realization, Krishna gives us some realization so they will have something to discuss. It's a very powerful process, very powerful process. So that's my experience. I'm completely incompetent speaker, but when you're in front of devotees who are serious about hearing, Krishna can make a dumb man speak. I'm so thankful. So thank you all. Glory to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is too full. It's too full. You can't do it. Let's go.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada made you live in Satyuga, in Katyuga.
Yes, he created.
You people